You ever wonder what it's like to run 250 miles in the desert on mountainous terrain? Well, I've got a treat for you today. Today, I've got Jason Bahamundi. He ran to Cocodona 250, and had a podcast about this a couple of weeks ago, and it's pretty interesting, that race, but he ran it. Now, I'll give you one other thing. He took 110 hours to run it. So what's it like being out there for 110 hours, pretty much almost 5 days? Well, stay tuned because we're going to talk to Jason and he's going to tell us all about it. Hey everyone, it's Sherri from Trail Wisdom Weekly and Trail Runner's Journey, where it's real talk for runners 35 plus. And I'm saying runners, rockers, and hikers because you know what? It's all the same when you come down to it. Yes, but one's faster than the other. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. You're out there going left foot, right foot, left foot, right foot. That's what matters. So it's real talk about what it's like to stay for the long game of both the race and the life. So welcome, Jason. I'm so glad you're on the show.
Thanks, Sherri. Thanks for having me. Can we make the age group 50 plus?
50 plus. Oh, 50 plus. Basically, you're not in high school anymore. This is when you've been there, done that. High school's done and over with, and it's just like, okay, now what do I do? What do I do now? So, Jason, you are Run Try Bike. You've got that organization as well as the Everyday Athlete Clubhouse. Tell me a little bit about yourself. Like, what's your athletic background like, and how long you've been running, and also tell us a little bit about Run Try Bike and Everyday Athlete Clubhouse.
Yeah, so I am a Puerto Rican kid who grew up in the Bronx, New York, and played all of the major sports that we see on TV today, right? Baseball, football, basketball, hockey. And it wasn't until I turned 34 that I got introduced to endurance sports and really leaned into it. And over the course of the last, what is that now, 20 years, I have gone from, half marathons, which was the first event I did. Most people, will get into it at a 5K, but from half marathons to 100 milers to 250 milers, that we're going to talk about today, as well as Ironman distance events. If it involves swimming, cycling, or running for long hours on end, I'm probably going to be very interested in it and participating in it at some point in my lifetime. It's just, I don't know, there's just so much about it that leads to a fulfilled life for me, and the lessons I learn on the course and in training that also help me off the course too. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. When it comes to Run Try Bike, I started this business 6 years ago. Our tagline is to prove that there is a spot at the starting line for every body and every space body. And since then, we have launched the Everyday Athlete Clubhouse, which in August of this year will be 1 year old. And we have nearly 150 members in that clubhouse. And they are from all backgrounds, from all parts of the US, as well as the UK, Canada, and Australia. And so we are an international organization. And if you're in our Slack channel, you will see that it is nothing but love and support and lots of questions that we help answer in private so that people won't feel shy, I guess, about asking questions about shoes, about paces, about heart rate zones, because we know sometimes social media can be a hellscape. And so we decided to create a space that allows people to be themselves without worrying about whether or not some troll is going to pop in there and ruin their day.
Oh, that is so rich. That is wonderful. And I like what you said, everybody and everybody, because there's no definitive runner's body. There's no definitive swimmer's body. There is nothing like that. And the safety, that's beautiful. That's totally beautiful because like a lot of times it can be very toxic online. It really is because you get somebody barking a comment that really, it's very easy to be an armchair warrior. Very easy,
to say the least.
Very, very easy. So I will tell you that when I signed online to go to Run Try Bike, the first thing that popped up was the article you did on me a few years ago.
Perfect.
Like, oh yeah.
Sweet. I love it. That was an enjoyable conversation back then too. So I'm glad we're getting to catch up, so to speak.
Yeah, well, yeah, and, especially with what's happening in the world and stuff like that since we last talked and all that stuff, it's really there's a draw and a need to feel some real connection,
Mhm.
and somebody who, "Hey, you do this too? Great, and let's learn from each other, let's help each other grow." So, yes, absolutely, and at the end of the broadcast, I'm gonna give, how to get a hold of Jason as well as the Everyday Athlete Clubhouse as well. So, let's look at the races you had going into Cocodona 250, because face it, it is not a couch to 250-mile program. Not in the least. And so going in, you ran Western States, and if you don't know, Western States, you have to qualify to get into Western States. And it is a Western State, it's a 100-mile, from Squaw Valley to Auburn to Squaw Valley, California, and I think they
The other
changed
way
the
around.
name of one of those places, but basically that's where it
Yep.
is. It's no slouch of a race. It's hot, mountainous, and so to get there, and all your running career, you ran like 6 100 milers, correct?
8 100 milers, including Western states,
Ah, 8
before I raced Cocodona. Yeah, 8
8
finishes. Yeah.
100 milers, and 100 milers aren't easy. Mm-mm, they're not easy.
No.
Nope, there
Nope.
after you reach the 100K, then there's no friends until about 140 miles, like, there's no friends there. You have to
I
invent a
will
whole counting
say
system, and
my thinking about 100 milers, for those of you who are interested in it, is the race really doesn't start until the 100K mark, because you have achieved something remarkable, 62 miles, 100K, and the reality hits you. I've got another 38 miles to go, and it's a wake up call, right? Because you've already been out there for a number of hours, depending on your pace. And it's like, holy moly, I've got another 38 miles to go, and that's where mental strength comes in getting through to take that next step after the 100K accomplishment.
I also wanna add in, like, depending on your terrain you're in, it's just like, "Oh my gosh, mountains are harder." No, going round and round in the track isn't any easier either, because it's it's a
Yep.
mental game. I've heard that running, sports, especially this, is 90% mental. Absolutely. Absolutely,
Yeah.
for sure. Especially, yeah, and you're eating, "I wanna be done," and you're thinking about your warm bed or whatever, and it's just like, "Ah, man, let's just
a,
go."
a
And
hot
not only
meal,
what's that?
a hot meal that's not from a tray in the middle of nowhere.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely, and not only 8 100 milers, you also ran 8 Ironmans.
Yeah. Yep. I told you, if it involves swimming, cycling, and running for hours on end, I'm probably going to be very interested in it.
So, going in and not and then I'm gonna add one more that I found that I really liked is you also crewed and paced Moab 240 and well as Badwater, and for people that don't know, Badwater is in June in the Mojave Desert Mojave, correct?
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah, in
Yes.
California, and you're in the bottom of the desert, and you have to go up Whitney Mountain. It's ew. I'm half polar bear. No, no, thank you.
I've also paced and crewed at Tahoe 200, and so
Okay.
I've been able to see a lot of these big events that people latch onto from various angles, whether I've run it or paced or crewed it. And one of the things I will say, which is why I think starting the company and having the Everyday Athlete Clubhouse, is you get to see people in their rawest forms, and it is uplifting. It really is uplifting because you see people struggling, even if they're even when they decide and choose to DNF. Even that is uplifting because they had to have made a decision to abandon a race that they've trained for days, weeks, months, or years for. And they are making a decision that's best for them in that moment. And I will applaud every single person who chooses to go that path because they're taking care of themselves. And so you just see the grit of the human mind and body at those events. And I've been very fortunate to see lots of it.
And I will add that because I've had my own DNFs, and the first one, I thought it was such a failure. It's not a failure. It really isn't. It could be due to a cutoff. It could be due to being medically pulled. It could be due to the fact, you know what? this is not happening for me. And it's, you have to look at the bigger picture. If you got a job to go to the next week, you know what? Maybe grunting through isn't the thing for you. But yeah, DNFs,
That's right.
it's personal. It's personal as to the why. And yeah, it also is a hard lump to take. It's like, as you said, I've trained for this for how long and the whole bit, and spent a bunch,
Mhm.
could be boatloads of cash too. And
Yep.
I'm not going home with a big shiny thing, but it's the journey along the way. And that's the most
That's right.
important part. It's the journey along the way. So let's go in, like, because you've seen a lot, you've done a lot. And that's what I like the beauty of this sport is you get to go places and see a lot of things. And right from the get-go, you're a fit guy. You're a fit guy. You're not coming from the couch, but you've got a race that is 250 miles. It's in mountainous terrain. You've got heat. You've got, kind of a little bit of everything thrown at you because in the desert, it's hot during the day, cold at night, and you can have a few things thrown at you. Um,
Yep.
so how did you prep for that race? How did you train?
Not much different than I would for a 100-mile race. I lived in Dallas, Texas at the time that I raced Cocodona. So hot and humid was already there, was part of the training. So I didn't have to really worry about doing anything differently when it comes to that mindset. So I would run in the middle of the day. I did 2 days at times. But I am also, and that's going to sound like I do a lot of mileage, right? But I'm a very low volume runner, 35 to 50 miles a week. If there's a race in there, and let's say I ran 100K, then it would be a 60-mile week,
Mhm.
plus a few extra runs in there, but not a ton of volume. But the volume was very specific, right? So Cocodona, I think somebody fact check me. I think it's about 45,000 or 50,000 feet of elevation over the course of the 250 miles. It may be more. I don't know. Um, in Dallas, it's very flat. So I took to the treadmill very often. I have probably 10 to 15 different treadmill workouts that involve incline and speed incline or weighted vest incline workouts, and just intersperse those throughout. Excuse me, my regular training program that would be for a 100 miler. Nothing special because you're never gonna be able to replicate going 250 miles, right? Like, so for example, if we think about it this way, if you were to run 20 miles for a marathon, right? That's what, 10/13ths of a marathon. And so you're
Mhm.
looking at 70% of a marathon. So 70% of 250 miles is what, like 170, somewhere in that vicinity. Like, you're not going out and training for a 170-mile race, right? So, like, you just have to be very specific, I think, with what the terrain is going to be, emulate it as much as you can. I would find different sections of the race course on the maps that Aerovipa provides. And if it's a 10% grade, 12% grade fit, that's what I would set the treadmill to. What's it feel like to hike up this or run up this, and what paces and that kind of stuff. So that's, in the grand scheme of things, how I would, or how I did, I should say, prep myself for going the 250 miles physically.
You know what? I want to repeat what you just really said, and I think it really needs to be heard is you did not do volume. You did intent. And that is so important because it's actually better to go into a race 10% under trained than 2% over.
Yeah.
And
And you can, at a distance like this, you can easily get burned out on training too, right? If you are so focused on volume, 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 you can easily find yourself getting burned out because all of a sudden it's like, oh, I got to go do this training and it's 10 miles or it's 15. And stacking that volume can be a detriment to you mentally and
mhm,
lead to burnout. And then all of a sudden race day comes and you're just not into it. You're like, man, get me out of here.
yeah, for sure. And also injury. You
Yeah.
can, yeah, oh man. I'm glad you said that. You train more like with purpose according to the terrain versus the volume. That's a beautiful statement. Thank you. Thank you for that. So let's go. When we chatted, you also mentioned that you wore a weighted vest as well, too.
Hmm. Yep. So on the treadmill, right, I would wear a weighted vest and try to add a little bit of that resistance, because you're also going to be carrying a pack with you for 250 miles. The pack is going to have some weight to it. The idea, for those of you that play baseball will recognize this, when you're playing baseball and you're in the on deck circle, you put a what's called a donut on your bat. It makes your bat heavier, so that when you go up to the plate, when you take that donut off, the bat feels lighter and you can swing it faster. Well, the idea for me was very similar. If I carry a weighted vest on the treadmill at these various steep inclines, or I would even go and walk with it at a trail that was near to where I was living at the time, I would walk with that weighted vest out there in the heat and humidity, that when it came time for the race, that pack that would have all the food and all the clothes and everything else in there, water didn't feel as heavy as what I had been training with, and so it would make it feel a little bit easier in my mind.
If you could imagine, how heavy do you think your pack weighed for Cocodona?
I would probably 10 to 12 pounds.
10 to 12 pounds, yeah. And that's actually a good advice for any ultra that you're going in, especially if you're gonna have a pack, is train with your pack so that you get the
Yeah,
feel of it and you get the feel of the weight, because it's a very different story running, I'm gonna say, quote, unquote, "naked" than what you are
yeah.
running with a pack on, for sure.
You
So
also wanna be able to make sure that, it's, where it's sitting on your
yes.
neck, so that you can avoid, if you have what might be hot spots and chafing, what's the clothing you're gonna be wearing during the race, so that you can avoid that, because the last thing you wanna do, and this is for any race, is have chafing that is gonna make the movement even harder than it already is.
Oh my gosh, yes. One of the, runners, he ran 58 hours, and when he mentioned, he says, "When you run 58 hours, butt crack starts to chafe and everything like that." So a lot of it is you kinda gotta be prepared for the for the unexpected. So,
Yeah.
okay, you've run 100 milers, you've done all Ironmans. How long did it take you to do your Ironman, just for reference sake?
Give or take about 12 hours, anywhere from 11 and a half to 12 hours.
7.5 to 12 hours. Okay. Okay. And for your 100 milers, how long did they take?
Anywhere from 19 hours up to, I think, Western states took me 27.
27. Okay. That gives an idea of how tough Western States is if you're coming in at 27 hours versus the other.
Yeah.
Yeah, my dream is to get in under 30. So anyway, we'll just carry on.
Finish every finish counts, no matter whatever the timing it says that you cross the mat at.
Absolutely. So Cocodona, 250 miles, 2.5 times longer than you've ever gone before. And the common question is, why? Why would you do that?
I would love for this to be like some super deep philosophical answer, but the reality is it was a game of chicken more than anything else. I have a friend that we ran and trained and paced and crewed each other at tons of events when I lived in Dallas. And Cocodona made the announcement, I think it was in 2019, that they made the announcement that this event was going to be happening. And we look at each other and we're like, we should do that. Right. And we're like, yeah, sure. And then obviously the world shut down with the pandemic. And so the race got delayed. But prior to that, we would just, did you register? Did you register? And it was never, no, it was never a yes, excuse me. And then one day I'm sitting in my living room and I get a text message that it just says your turn. And it's a screenshot of his registration page. And I was like, can we curse on this show, Sherri? Can I
Pardon
use
me?
explicatives? Can I use explicatives on this show?
Okay, I'll mark it explicative.
I was like, oh shit, I have to do this now. And I was like, okay. And so I registered for the event. So my why wasn't like, again, it wasn't like I'm going to go deep into my soul and find who I really am and all of these things. No, like I didn't know about 200 milers. Destination trail races existed, Tahoe, Moab, and Bigfoot were in existence, but they were just never on my radar. So I never had a why for wanting to do these things. until I guess the why is that it was a challenge. I was issued a challenge. I accepted the challenge. Let's go.
We should, you see, you sound like a couple of drunk guys at a party type thing. Oh, we should do this. Okay. Oh, that sounds like a good idea. And then somebody actually signs up. Like, what the hell? Somebody signed up
Yeah.
here. Like, what do you mean I have to go through with it now? You know, what would have been if you would have said, good, I'll crew you.
I mean, he would have been happy to have crew, I'm pretty sure, and a pacer, no doubt. And it might have been better for him because then we didn't have to have two separate crew setups because, again, we lived in the same area in Dallas. So it's like, okay, who's getting who for, it was almost like a draft. Who's getting who for pacing and crewing? It might have been easier if it was just him registering and I was like, all right, dude, I'll be your crew chief and pace you along the way too. Might have made life easier for him.
Oh, but you wouldn't have had that race experience together,
Exactly right.
which we're getting to now. So when you look at how did you run the race? Now I want you to go over like, you know, your sleep, your run walk, but you know what? Let's start with how you got out of the starting line and you're starting to crawl up. Is it Mingus Mountain?
Lane.
Oh, okay, that
Lane.
one. Okay, go for it. Like how that was a very like entertaining story in its own, like entertaining. Just tell it.
It was so having raced Black Canyon and been on those trails before, you start in Black Canyon City and you start running. And it's, again, it's the desert, it's rocks and dirt and mountains near you. And it's fairly nondescript of a race at the start. And don't get me wrong, there is climbing and there's descending, but there's nothing super bad. And the race prep video tells you that when you get to, I think it's mile 11, you'll hit an aid station. And at mile 11, you got to fill up. You got to have, I think at the time, they recommended 6 liters of water because the next aid station is not until basically mile 37, if I'm not mistaken. And so we get to mile 11. We decided that we were going to run together until we got to the first crew spot, which is at mile 72. So we're running together through this, and we're as gleeful as it can be through the Black Canyon section of this race of Cocodona because we're like, oh, we've been here before. We know this terrain. We raced Black Canyon together. We get to mile 11. We load up. Hey, you ready to go? Let's go. And almost immediately it starts to suck. Like almost immediately leaving that aid station. You are climbing Lane Mountain. It is hot. You're not under any shadows whatsoever. There's no trees out there. You're fully exposed. It's brutal. The rocks feel bigger than they are. And when I tell you that, I don't think I'm exaggerating when I say that we would take 2 or 3 steps and then have to sit down. Then we'd get up, take 2 or 3 steps and have to sit down. And I go back to the idea of a game of chicken, right? To get into this race. So now here we are, and it's like, all right, dude, I'm going to get us going. So I'd get up and I would take our steps and then we'd sit down. And then he would be like, okay, dude, I'm ready. Let's go. And he would take his steps and I would follow him. And so we were just playing follow the leader. I have told this story multiple times, and I was so worried about running out of water that I was trying to conserve as much as possible and asking people if they had even just a sip to share, right? And there were a few athletes that were passing us and they shared water with us, and it was fantastic. I owe them so much. But it was super, super brutal climbing up Lane Mountain. And when I tell you that DNFing was a thing that I asked myself, it feels like hundreds of times in that moment. Like one of the thoughts that passed through my head multiple times was, how do I tell my pacer and my crew and the friends that are watching us that this race is over before we even get to the 50K mark? We haven't even gotten to mile 31, and like DNFing was such a real thing. We get to the top of Lane Mountain, and then you start running on single track, and there are these yellow flowers around you, and you can, as far as the eye can see, and it is gorgeous. Like it is beautiful. So the reward for all of that hard work was now this vision that you're seeing. And You then get to start to descend into Crown King. But what they had done was there's an aid station at the top, and they had moved water from the aid station closer to the apex of the climb because it was so hot, it was so brutal that having people wait until they got to the aid station was like not smart. And I will say this, when I got to that aid station, I saw Corey Waltering sitting outside one of the tents. And that's when it dawned on me. We just did some really hard shit. Like Corey Waltering is still here and I'm catching up to him. And what he looks like and how I feel like I'm ahead of him now because he just looked like the world had just beat him up. That's how hard it is. And Corey is an elite athlete, and he's done some really hard stuff. You can go find him on Amazon. He's got like one of those adventure races he was a part of. And so like he's done some really hard stuff, and to see him there was like eye-opening. And then once you leave that, you descend into Crown King, and it's glorious because it's descending in some wide open Jeep trail road, and now everybody's happy and everybody's talking. And it really is like that moment that you need to be like, okay, we've done something really super hard. We're being rewarded for it. What's the next challenge going to be?
And let me guess, you probably had a few challenges along the way.
Yeah, I mean, we have another 213 miles of challenges to go after we get into Crown King. I think it was
like
Maggie Guterl. I will add this. So for people to understand how hard it was, again, I told you about Corey. I think it was Maggie Guterl who did the race the year that we did it and said it was absolutely the hardest 50K she had ever done. And she, again, another elite athlete who's done some really hard things. And so getting to Crown King is a task. And so if you get to that spot, pat yourself on the back. You've done some really hard shit.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm going to, I hear this, I've heard this and I hear this. And I was actually in a race when a lady went and said this, and I actually had to move away from this woman because she would have had a new wardrobe by the time I was done with her. But, if you didn't run, the whole thing, that doesn't count that you ran the race.
I don't know what that means. What is she trying to get?
Basically, if you didn't run the whole thing, it didn't mean you run the race. So what I say
like physically ran it, you mean?
Yeah.
Okay.
What gate? Yeah, you walked, ran, crawled, hiked, bouldered, whatever it is. And that's why I want people to understand is that run is an umbrella term.
Yes.
It's an umbrella term, especially when you get into the ultras, because there's times of where you cannot run. I don't care who you are. You cannot run because the terrain demands it. So you ran, you walked, you crawled, and you probably slept.
Oh, I did. I absolutely slept. I know going into this, again, I don't, just so people understand, I don't do a lot of research. I don't want to say a wing it athlete, but I guess I'm a wing it athlete. We'll figure it out along the way. So I don't do a lot of research. I don't read a lot of race reports for a few different reasons. One of the reasons is I don't want to taint the jury pool. Somebody's hard may be my easy, and somebody's easy may be my hard. And so I tend not to read that stuff. My crew chief sent me a Google Doc that had and I'm going to exaggerate, looked like 75 tabs on it for her Tahoe 200. And she was like, here's what I did. And I was like, I was so overwhelmed by it. I just deleted it. I didn't X out. I deleted it. I'm like, I can't look at this. It's too much. So going into this, Greg and I had talked about, and Greg is the friend from Dallas, had talked about sleeping and what does that look like. And his thought process was, I'm going to sleep as little as possible. And I was like, okay, that sounds cool. We'll figure it out. Right. During 100 milers, I didn't sleep. And I was like, okay, should be easy to get through this stuff with a few winks. We got to the mile 72 aid station, and I think I slept for about 15 minutes. And we got up and left. And I realized as we were moving along how exhausted I was. I just was exhausted from a lack of sleep and having, I think it took us 17 hours or 19 hours to get to miles. I don't know. It took us a long time to get to mile 72. We were way off our pace charts. And in that moment, I was like, I'm going to need to sleep. And so my change of plans, my pivot in my training strategy, racing strategy, I should say, was I'm going to sleep every night in the van. I had a rental van.
Okay.
And so what I would do is I would tell my pacer, have the crew take out these clothes. So when I get to the van, I can change my clothes immediately, have a cup of coffee and some food and whatever else so that I can climb right into the van and go to sleep for 3 to 4 hours. And
Mhm.
I would tell them set up an alarm so that in 3 to 4 hours we can get up and keep moving because you're exhausted. You could sleep 8, 10 hours, right? But I wanted to get the race done. I'm still competitive. I wanted to race. And so I slept 3 to 4 hours. And I think if I did the math correctly, over the course of the 110 hours, I think the number of hours I slept was somewhere around 14. And that doesn't include dirt naps in the middle of the trail where I would just power down for 5 or 10 minutes and then pop back up. So it was probably close to 15, 16 hours of sleep total.
That's really good to know because, like, a lot of times there's really until you're there and in that race, you have no concept. You have no concept of what it's all about, like, sleep. I was in one ultra, and it was a track ultra, and the fellow looked at me, and goes, "I didn't know we could sleep during these things." Yeah, you have to, sometimes you have to, and sometimes it's like a 10-minute thing. It could be like, as you say, a few weeks thing, and sometimes it's a couple of hours or something like that, and it's to think about it, you have to give your body what it needs at the point of time,
Hmm.
and that is enough rejuvenation so you can keep on going. And
Yep.
and yeah, like, yeah, this is the sleep
I shared this with you when we talked last week. So I've interviewed people who've done Cocodona as well. And one person in particular told me that he barely slept at all. And he finished, it wasn't the same year, but he finished, I think, in 108 hours. And he had commented offhandedly that it was not the greatest experience, the race for him. And there were parts of the race, and a lot of parts of the race that he doesn't remember. I, on the other hand, who took, like I said, 14, 15 hours of sleep and finished in 110 hours, can vividly remember the vast majority of the race. In my
Mm,
experience, even the hard part on Lane Mountain, I remember and I can appreciate it. And so I say that as a cautionary tale to those who are going to listen to this and decide that they want to register and see if they can get in via lottery to Cocodona is like, enjoy the experience out there, because if you're trying to do this as fast as you possibly can and you're not sleeping, you're going to have big pockets of blank memories. And the whole idea of doing something like this is to remember it, right? Like to tell stories about it, to remind yourself that you can do hard things. And so it's just a cautionary tale. Maybe you don't sleep 15, 16 hours, maybe you need 8, I don't know, but like to do it without sleep and then come away sort of discouraged by the lack of memory and not a more favorable outlook on the race, I think for me would be a waste of time and money.
you know what that is? That's actually a really good way to put it because I know even, like, up here, we have the Canadian Death Race, and one of the advice pieces that are in there is said, "Pull up your head and look. You are on
Yes.
the top of the mountains and you've got gorgeous scenery. Take look at what you're doing." And for the majority of us, vast majority of us, we're not elites. We're not sponsored. We have jobs to go to, and we do this for our recreation and fun when it
Hmm.
comes down to it. And if anybody's saying, "You do that for fun?" Yeah, I do that for fun, and so does Jason. And so this is what we do
Yeah.
for fun. We like to do hard things. And you made a valid point of being able to remember those hard things. And that's very valid. I thank you for bringing that up. It's like, do this. Yes, do your hard thing, but also when you're going through this, if you don't get to sleep, you don't get the memory.
Yeah.
That
It's
well,
as simple as that. It really is.
that's actually that's really really good. I like that. So you had the mind games on Ling Mountain. Did you have any other mind games along the way, or was that one and done?
I think that was the one and done. aspect of it, because I learned from it, right? Like I can
Mm.
do hard things, and that became my baseline for hard things throughout the rest of that event. Um, Climbing Mingus, I loved. I absolutely loved climbing Mingus. Eldon was very difficult, but in my mind, it wasn't as hard as climbing Lane Mountain. And maybe it's harder. I don't know, but I had set that baseline. Like this is the hardest thing you're going to do over these 253 miles. I made some wrong turns, so I went 257 miles. But over the course of 253 miles, like that's the hardest thing you're going to have to deal with. In Sedona, there's a climb that you go through that also feels like you're about 3 steps away from touching the clouds because you're just going vertical for the most part. But it never felt as hard as Lane Mountain was, and that I think is because I just set that as the baseline in my head. Like, there's nothing you're going to do the rest of this race that's as hard as this.
That's a good piece of, a good perspective of looking at it. I just did that? Hey, man,
Yeah,
I can handle just about anything else, and that's sometimes, a perspective that is needed in the back pocket. Look at what I've previously done, and it doesn't have to be during this race, it could be a previous race that you've done something really, really hard. If you've done that one, you can keep going and do the rest.
I will tell you a story. I just shared this on our Instagram page. Um, I raced the U.S. Open Triathlon Championships in Rockwell, Texas, one year, and it was after I had already done Ironman Texas. And I panicked in the water. I swam to a kayak. The volunteer was giving me all the right things to say. Right? She was amazing. And I realized, I said to myself, you swam 2.4 miles. You can swim this 1 mile event. Now get your ass off the kayak and get going. And so it's again, it's like I've done something harder. I can do this.
Yeah. That's really good. I've done something harder, I can do this.
Yeah.
That's great. I like that. I really like that. And if you haven't done something harder, you know what? I've done something just as about as hard. I don't have far to go on this one. So yeah, like sometimes we do have to be our own coaches out there, especially when there's no
100%.
one else around except bears
Yeah.
and cougars
Yeah.
and frogs. So yeah, we have to be our own coaches out there. So what did you eat? So what did you eat and what was your savior food? Because a lot of times we have during that there's one food that is an angel from heaven dropped it into us. And it was just our race. It was just made it everything even better. So what'd you eat?
So it changed over the course of, 110 hours, but I went into this with the idea of liquid calories in my flasks and in my hydration vest and gels and all of that stuff, right? Snickers bars, Kit Kat bars, Twix bars, lots of candy bars along the way because you just need to fill yourself up with calories. Well, one of the things that happened to me is the gels are typically in like a foil package. And so I was getting cold sores from all the sugar that I was consuming, and then the foil packages would irritate it when you put it in your mouth. It felt like it was cutting your mouth, and so I scrapped the gels and went to oatmeal. Most of your audience has probably had overnight oats at some point in their endurance journey, and so stealing that concept, I had asked at an aid station if they had Ziploc bags. And what I would do is I would take the Ziploc bags, I would put 2 packets of instant oatmeal and water, and just put it in my hydration vest, and it would mush around and it would become basically what would be like overnight oats. And then I would just squeeze it into my mouth. So I was getting slow burning carbs from the oatmeal. At the aid stations, I would eat whatever food they had, like literal food. I remember at mile 72's aid station, I had blueberry pancakes and hash browns. I remember having sandwiches, vegetarian and vegan sandwiches all along the course. At Whiskey Row in Prescott, I had asked my pacer to message our crew that I was in the mood for Impossible Whoppers from Burger King and Klondike bars. And so when we got onto Whiskey Row and they had 2 Impossible Whoppers and a Klondike and multiple Klondike bars because they sell them in packages of 6, it was like utopia. 2 Impossible Whoppers and 2 Klondike bars later, I was ready to leave Prescott and get back out there. So, I mean, the answer is what didn't I eat? Or the question should be what didn't I eat? More so than what did you eat? Because there was just about everything. Like aid stations would have the ice pops that, because you're in the desert, it's hot out, was perfect. When you would get to some aid stations at night, I remember vividly, it was the second night we had just finished climbing. The stars you could see so clearly. It was beautiful,
Ooh.
but it was so cold. And so we sat around a fire pit. There were three of us, Greg, myself, and some stranger, and we consumed what felt like 10 gallons of, for me, veggie broth, for them, chicken broth, to just
Mm.
warm up and get the salt in our systems to get going. So take advantage of what was there. I will tell you at Sedona, because I had done this previously, I'm a big fan of mashed potatoes and maple syrup. Quick acting carbs with maple syrup, long acting carbs with
What?
potatoes. Yep.
Together?
So when we got in, yes, when we got into Sedona, they didn't have mashed potatoes, but what they had were these instant potatoes that you pour hot
Mhm.
water. They were hash browns, instant hash browns. You pour hot water into that. It's in like a cardboard carton. You shake it up,
Oh,
and
yes,
the
yes.
potatoes revive. And so I was like, oh, can you just pour some maple syrup in there? And so I had hash browns and maple syrup in Sedona. And it was glorious. It was absolutely glorious.
Now I've gotta ask a question. If would you eat that now? Like, as in you're not in a race, maple syrup and hash browns?
Yes. Yes.
I have never heard
Yes.
of that. Oh, for crying out loud, I've never heard of that.
Yep.
And
I
my
had
my last
it.
podcast, I said you have the weird cravings, like the weird stuff. Okay, folks, this is one of them. I have never heard of maple syrup and hash browns, but you know what? When you're craving it, do it. That's the only thing I
Yeah.
have to say.
The first time I had it was at Bandera, which is in Texas. I ran the 100K, and I just needed something hot, and I also wanted something sweet. And they're like, "Well, the only thing we have sweet would be this maple syrup. That do you want that on your mashed potatoes?" And I was like, "Yes." Like I didn't care. I just wanted that, and so it was like a concoction by accident, but it absolutely, for me, it's glorious. It's absolutely glorious.
Well, actually, like potatoes in back in the old, like, olden days type thing, that's what actually they had in the center of chocolates was potatoes. Potatoes and sweetened. So no, you're like, yeah, but it's just not something like potato, it's butter, it's
Yeah.
it's the savory stuff for crying out. But yeah, we don't think about that. But you told in our call, you went and said the hot dog. You had to have a
Yeah.
hot
Oh,
dog
yeah.
a certain way, and
More
I've
than
been
one.
waiting a week
More
to
than
find
one.
out.
So, my wife had so again, I'm typically the unprepared runner. My wife read the race packet briefing that Aerovipa puts out, and she saw that at the top of Mingus they were going to have vegan hot dogs, and she was like, "Make sure you have vegan hot dogs when you get there, no matter what you do. Make sure you have vegan hot dogs when you get there." So we climb as we're climbing up to Mingus. I had already told my crew they're going to be vegan hot dogs there. They have to be prepared a certain way, otherwise it's just not going to work for me. And they were like, "Well, what's the certain way?" And I said, "So in the bun, you have to put crushed potato chips down first to create a base so that the bun doesn't split from the hot dog. Then you put the hot dog in. Then you need to put mustard and then put crushed potato chips on top of that so that the potato chips don't fall off the hot dog because the mustard acts as a glue." And I said, at least two of those when I get into that aid station. And they were on point. They had my hot dogs prepared and ready to go when I walked into that aid station, which was fantastic. And here's one thing I will also add: at Mingus, they have medical there. And I want to give a shout out to the medical staff that was there because they do a great job of asking you questions in a friendly manner that doesn't make you think that you're being examined, but you are being examined. They want to know that you're coherent. They want to know that your mind is ready to go and keep moving. and not something that is going to hurt you in getting and leaving the aid station too fast. So they asked great questions, and do you know what day it is, and how are you feeling, stuff like
Mhm.
that. But then they'll keep asking you a handful of questions so that you're prepared to keep going, or they're prepared to tell you you need to take a nap.
Nice. And yeah, like I get that because I'm also a medical person. So yeah, it's the questions you ask and to anybody out there, if you're being asked these questions, it's their way of going, are you okay? Because they're looking for
It's
certain
exactly
things.
right.
They're
Yep, it's
either, "Are
exactly
you
right.
okay?" Now, with through the race now, did you more drip feed your food or was it, kinda like a feast and famine?
Or more like a drip. So I would the oatmeal mush, I would have at least 2 Ziploc bags of it in my vest at all times. And so I would eat at the aid station, and then I would take those 2 Ziploc bags with me, right? So
Okay.
I'm eating a ton at the aid station, cookies and whatever foods they have, and then I would have my oatmeal mush with me to carry me until I could, plus other stuff, don't get me wrong, until I could get to the next aid station.
Okay, I also do a drip feed as well too. I find that is so much better, and it keeps you more even rather than going the crash burn type thing like that.
And it's a great distraction. Like,
Oh my gosh, yes. Oh my gosh, is what can I eat now? Like, it's a whole thing.
Yeah.
What can I eat now? What's in my pack? Like, yeah, it works. It really works. Did you ever have any pickles or pickle juice?
Yes. That is something that is always a part of, for me, any sort of trail or ultra race that I'm doing. I will tell you a story at Black Canyon. My goal was to break, 12 hours, and we pulled up to the last aid station, and I put Coke and pickle juice in the same flask. I don't recommend it. It tastes awful. It absolutely tastes awful. Don't do it. But it was great because I got the sugary sweetness and the from the Coke, and then the electrolytes and the sodium from the pickle juice. I drank it as fast as I possibly could without getting sick, but it helped carry me to breaking 12 hours at Black Canyon. So it works. It's just know that it's going to taste terrible if you do it.
Pickle juice, yeah, it's a lifesaver. It really is. It saved my race. And I was like not very far into it, and I was just not feeling good, and I got the pickles. I honestly carried a bag of pickles with me through the whole race. So
Yeah.
yes, pickles and pickle juice.
Mhm.
Absolutely, absolutely. So what was it's a big course. It's a big course. What were some of your favorite moments when you looked and you thought you mentioned the stars? That
Yeah.
and I'm assuming you probably took a couple pictures along the way. Um,
I'm not great at that. Thank goodness other people had their cameras out and took a lot of pictures for me. Different points along the course. So the first time I saw Fain Ranch, it's just this wide open expanse of land, and there are cows running around it and all over the place. But it's just this massive expanse of land where you can see Mingus off in the distance. And so, like, just that contrast of uber flat with the mountain in the background was glorious. I do have a picture of the morning of leaving Mingus and the sunrise in front of me as we get ready to descend
mm,
off of the mountain was absolutely stunning. Um, Jerome, getting into the old ghost mining town of Jerome, was pretty neat to be able to see and get into. Um, Climbing Eldon was hard, but the reward, and there's a picture out there of me sitting on a rock overlooking what seems like never ending land at the top of Eldon, which was absolutely stunning and glorious as well. And then obviously the finish line is another vision that when you make the right turn into the alley, like you can hear people yelling, and they do another great job of having spotters at the corner so they can
ah,
see when the athletes are coming up so they can get the crowd hyped up. Because as you can imagine, you turn right into this alley. So, and it's, I don't know, Sherry, like maybe 50 feet before you get to the finish line. Once you make that right turn, it's not very far. And so if the audience, the spectators don't know that an athlete is coming down, they're going to be doing their own thing, right? They're going to be
right.
talking and they're not paying attention. And so they have spotters. and they do a great job of getting the crowd that's at the finish line yelling and screaming, and you can hear them from down the street. So then when you make that right turn, like it's a frenzy. People are whipped up into a frenzy, and the whole crowd is amazing. So when you make that right turn, that's another memory that anybody who's finished the race is going to have for a lifetime.
So what's a great segue into this one. When you came and you saw that finish line, how did you feel? Like, what was your reactions? How did you feel? Like, Manuville is like a when she finished Cocodona, not last year, but the year before, she stopped and she just admired the finish line. And people asked her, said, "Well, why didn't you just run across?" She goes, "I've been running for 250 miles. I've been doing this for 250 miles. It's finally here. I wanted to
Yeah,
soak it in." So, what was your reaction?
exactly that. There is a euphoria. Oh my goodness, I just did this. And there's also a, oh my goodness, I just did this letdown almost immediately, right? It's conflicting. For me, it was conflicting, right? You're excited that you've just completed this big task. Simultaneously, there's, I wouldn't say immediately post race blues, but there's certainly, they start to creep in because you're like, okay, this whole experience, this 100, for me, 110 hours has now come to an end. And so it is sort of like I should be taking this all in, gaining perspective, understanding I've done something very, very difficult that I can take with me for the rest of my life. So it's I- I'm sure that there are athletes out there that are 100% on top of the world. And I'm sure that there are athletes that are 100% uber reflective. I had both. I had a combination of both being, this is amazing, and oh my goodness, like it's, I don't want to say what's next, as in I can't wait to do the next thing, but where's the letdown coming in now? Now that I've done
Yes.
this thing.
And it's a good thing you said that, because it's not unusual to go into depression after this race. Because think about it, these races, and it is any anytime you're getting to that much exertion, it is the adrenaline, it is the epinephrine,
Hmm.
it is the dopamine, so much dopamine that you get,
Yep.
oxytocin, and it's a roller coaster. And when you're not getting that hit, and you think about it through a race, and even a 50K or even a half marathon, there's I feel good, I feel bad, I feel even better. There is that roller coaster. And yeah, this is done. All of a sudden, it's the realization of, okay, I'm done that. Where's my next feel good going to come from?
Yeah, my wife um, just defended her dissertation and is now a doctor. And one of the things that she and her cohort had been discussing is like, you've been building up to this finish line for 3 years. And they've been warned that there is going to be this off a cliff moment because you've been building and building and building and building, and now you've accomplished the thing. And that's, when talking to her, I realized that's how Cocodona was for me. It was like this training and this effort, and then doing the race and getting through the race and finishing the race, and then there's sort of like this cliff. And one of the things that Lori and I had been talking about is she had learned through her research that recovery from burnout is typically somewhere between 3 and 5 years. And that burnout is whether that's physical activity or at a job or anything, any form of burnout is typically 3 to 5 years to recover from. And it's 2026. I did that race in 2021. And I will say, for the first time in about 5 years, I am excited to race again. This doesn't mean I didn't race previously. It didn't mean I didn't show up. It doesn't mean I didn't train, but the idea of racing again is finally here. And I've done um, and I've changed up as well. So I was racing trails and ultras, and I've gone back to road racing in 2026 to see if I could find that spark, and it has worked. So the culmination of getting through burnout, and post race blues, which I think is Cocodona's scenario, to changing up and running road races, and I've done 2 marathons this year, and I've had a great time at both. Like, I'm excited to race. I'm excited to be back out there. I'm excited to do all those things again. And so I'm not saying this as a cautionary tale to people. I'm just asking them to be aware and cognizant of what comes after the finish line.
Absolutely, and that also could be too if you run, for, if let's say, for example, you do 300 milers in a season or like whatever it is, that yes, it is totally to be aware that, yeah, you can get the doldrums, you can get the depression, and to be prepared for that and to have, okay, what's going to make me feel good? Where's my support system in this? And with the burnout, I'm glad you mentioned that 3 to 5 years for the burnout. Well, I could tell you one thing going through menopause and postmenopause with getting a new like body 2.0, yeah, you're looking at a while too. So the whole thing is to be kind to yourself and kind to your body and finding out what actually is going to work for you, what's going to bring you and what's going to make you feel that in some ways you're not losing your mind. That, and
Right.
also another one is that it's just happening to me. No, it's not. This is actually quite common. So when we watched Cocodona this year and we saw Rachel Enterkin come in at 56 hours and 9 minutes, like, holy cow. And I don't care, man, like, she was fantastic. And not only did she claim first woman, she was first overall and has the total course record. What was your reaction when you saw Rachel, that what she had done? And you look back and there was a picture of you and your buckle and you went, "Yeah, I got 110 hours. I had more course time than you did." But what was your reaction when you saw her, the phenomenal thing that she did? And that's not taking any away from anybody else. To cross that finish line is phenomenal. But how she did it in that time, can you share your thoughts, share what you felt and saw after that?
Yeah, and so I will set it up this way. You and I have talked about this a couple of times already. I am not a huge consumer of um, social media, running social media at the elite level. I wasn't watching the dots move on the Cocodona live stream. It's just, there's just, it's not, that's not something that piques my interest at the level that it does for a lot of people. And so once I saw the posts coming in because other people were talking about it, I was flabbergasted because, and it's not because it took me 110 hours, it's because I know the terrain I covered
Mhm.
and how she was capable of covering it twice as fast as I did, and how incredible of a feat that is. Because we just talked about Lane Mountain at the start of this, and how I would take 3 to 5 steps and have to sit down, right? And I'm thinking to myself, my goodness, like how fast did you run up Lane Mountain? And then when you go into at Watson Lake, at Watson Lake, there's just boulders. It's literally bouldering. And so to like as I'm walking through that, like she has to be literally running through this. Climbing up Eldon. I shared this on Holly's Substack. Holly, Fueled by LOL, she just posted about my story there as well. That when I climbed up Eldon, I got passed by people who were there for the day in Crocs. And, I was like trying to make my way up that mountain. And I just kept thinking of like, she ran up those sections, which is just unbelievable when you think about now she's nearing 55 hours at that point going up Eldon, or 50, probably about 54 hours at that point, because you still have about 10 miles once you reach the top of Eldon before you get to the finish line. And so, like, that's just flat out amazing.
Yeah.
And I think about the descent off of Eldon, and it's on a Jeep road and it's super steep. And that's a great way to get your feet caught up underneath you and fall head over heels and make your way down the mountain in a somersault. And like to be under control at that pace and that speed, it made me, I was blown away by that concept of going that fast.
And when she come into the finish line, she was fresh as a daisy, it looked like she was
She
just
looked
like, it
like
wa
it for sure. It's
unreal.
amazing.
It was unreal. And Killian Korth, who came in second, first man, and he also set a record for the men's. He says, "I'm strong, but holy cow, she's strong." And the thing is, that's one thing to give credit is just how strong Rachel, and like when you think about the people that finish in the less than 60 hours, that's strength. and it doesn't take away from anything because you know what? Anybody to tackle 250 miles, that's strength as well too, both physical and mental. And you look at where am I now? And I'm going to look at Wayne coming in. Wayne Amos when he came in and it was such an emotional finish and it was he was bent over, he was could barely walk and he had help to cross the finish line and he came in at 125 hours. And, you know, the whole thing is when you look at that, and that's the epitome of the human spirit right there, is he didn't stop. He kept on going. And, you know, some people said, well, that's unhealthy. Well, maybe to you it might be, but to him, it meant a lot. And it's like, it's to see Wayne finish at that. Can you comment on that part?
Yeah, so in the math, I'm closer to Wayne than I am to Rachel, right? Rachel's 54 hours faster than me. I'm 15 hours faster than Wayne.
Yeah.
And so I'm closer to Wayne. I can relate more to Wayne. I didn't have a lean as drastic as Wayne, but I had a lean when I was finishing that event. And so I think about from this perspective, like I don't want anybody to put themselves in harm's way in an unsafe scenario. But with the people that were around Wayne, I'm guessing that they could gauge where he was at in that scenario from a physical standpoint. And so, claps for him that he finished and now he has a baseline for what's hard, right?
Mhm.
So the next time he wants to apply for a job or apply for a loan for a business or go out for the next race, I'm guessing it's never going to be as hard as what he just did. And sometimes we need to step outside of our comfort zone to realize what our full potential is. And to me, I'm guessing that's what Wayne has. And I haven't seen any interviews of him or any conversations about it, but I'm guessing that that's what it feels like for him. Like I was able to find what I've been able to redefine what my comfort zone is now.
That's a good way to put it, and yeah, what is hard, and when you look at yeah, he did a hard thing, and yeah, of course, there's gonna be opinions out there and judgments and stuff like that, but you know what? We have a saying called "walk a mile," or in that case, "walk 250 miles," and see what like, you have to put yourself in that person's shoes, and when one of the nicest pictures I saw was Rachel and Wayne sitting together, like, after he got the IVs and stuff, and she was sitting there with him, and the top of the top of the pack were they didn't like most of them didn't fly and go home. They were there for the whole thing, and I think probably it's because they're expecting to they don't know when they're finishing, so they might as well just book it for the full time. So that was
Yep.
really nice to see because being at the back of the pack, and I finished DFL and stuff. It was so nice to see all the crowd lit up like a Christmas tree, and everybody just cheering and encouraging to come in because I've come in of where it's like oh, hello. Anybody here? You can just hear the crickets. Like, that's the only thing you're coming into is the crickets. And just to see that is just it was emotional. It was totally amazing. And all right, so it's post race. And we're gonna talk about, like, because like, when you see people come across the finish line, "Yay, we're wonderful," and stuff like that. Now the reality sets in of what your body actually really looks like and really feels. So, what was it about? What did you notice, like, with your body? Because face it, the 110 hours, you pounded your body through a lot. What reactions did your body have?
Swollen. Like everything was swollen. Feet look like Bilbo Baggins, from the Hobbits. Like you're just swollen
Yeah.
because you're retaining all sorts of liquid. Like the reality is, right? You're traumatizing your body, whether that's at a marathon, half marathon, or 250 miles. You're traumatizing your body, and so your body is going to automatically defend itself, and it's going to put liquid around you, right? It's going to around its organs, and so you're just swollen everywhere. So taking my shoes off and taking my socks off was hard. Getting undressed to sit in the bathtub was hard. And you're just sore all over. Um, Walking just even a handful of feet to the door to get food from the delivery person feels like an eternity before you can get there because the adrenaline rush has left.
Yes.
That's the part of it that we need to remember is as you're going through this process of covering whatever the distance is, there's adrenaline there that's moving you along. Well, now that adrenaline is gone, you've crossed the finish line, the adrenaline's gone, and now your body's like, okay, we're supposed to sleep, we're supposed to rest, we're supposed to do nothing, and you still got to shower, you still got to travel, you still have to go to the door to get the food from the delivery guy. And everything feels like a lot more work than you're accustomed to. But my hands were swollen, my feet were swollen, my gut was swollen. Um, you just have to give yourself some grace,
Yeah.
right? I have disordered eating, so body image is a thing for me, and so seeing my body after that event, you got to give yourself some grace and knowing like you're swollen because your organs are protecting themselves. It's not that you put on weight while you were running for 110 hours. But yeah, it's a lot of let's get calories in, let's get liquids
Mhm.
in, let's get calories in, let's get liquids in, let's go to sleep, let's get calories in, let's get liquids in. Like it's just wash, rinse, repeat.
And when we talked, you said that the scale moved, probably 10 pounds heavier,
At least,
at
at
least, and
least 10
that's
pounds
one thing that's
heavier.
important for anybody out there to hear is that, yes, inflammation is real. It's real,
Hmm.
it's, afterwards, and when you've got the inflammation that's real, and how do you cope with it? And one of the things, yeah, eat, drink, the whole bit. And it's nothing about gaining weight or anything like that. Believe me, when this goes away, you probably your body's going to be in a different spot. But to get that, so question because how long did it take your feet to feel clean again?
That's a great question. I remember like getting into the bathtub because the idea of standing up in the shower was awful, and so I ran the tub and I sat in the tub and I probably scrubbed all night, and then the next day I showered again and scrubbed. It probably took like 2.5 days to get all of the like completely gone, like all of the filth completely gone. Like the surface stuff leaves, but you always just I don't know, maybe it was gone. I just felt dirty even after showering because it's just a lot of grime, right?
Yeah.
It's the sunscreen, it's the bug spray, it's the sweat that's on you, and I didn't feel clean for at least probably 2 days, even though the dirt may not have been visible. It just felt like I was dirty,
Mm.
and it just didn't feel clean no matter how many times I scrubbed and showered.
Did you have any chafing?
The only scenario I had was a blister on my foot that I got at somewhere around mile 246, descending off of Eldon. You're like I said, it's super steep, and we are probably halfway down the mountain when I felt something in my foot, and I was like, "Oh shit! I bet you that's a blister that just popped open." And sure enough, handful of
Mm.
steps later, I could see the blood on the shoe. And so I loosened my shoe and opened it up and looked at it. And sure enough, it was there. And so then I retied it with a little looser foot setting so that, my foot would swell, but it also would have some space in there to not rub too much. And went on from there, but no chafing in any of the areas that you would typically chafe in.
Wow, wow. Man, you are blessed.
I absolutely am 100% blessed.
Wow. After I ran javelina, I felt something, kind of picking type thing, and when I took my shirt off and pack, I had road rash right across my waist, and it's just like thinking about getting to the shower is like, oh, that's gonna hurt. And and yeah, you're lucky.
One of the things that I do is, um, if anybody's seen race pictures, I typically race in a button down shirt. But a lot of times, especially at night there, because it was so cold, I would have another shirt underneath. And so I would tuck that shirt into my shorts so that when my race belt went up, if it went past my shorts, it wasn't rubbing skin. It was just touching that second shirt there.
Mm.
And so that helped protect a lot. And the other thing is running in the desert, it dry. And so as you're sweating, it dries, which made that a little bit easier. And then, of course, you're using whatever product it is. The product of choice helped as well in helping to avoid any of that chafing.
So tell me about your sleep. You had a story about when you fell asleep. There's a story with a pizza and when you fell asleep.
Oh, that was after the race, sitting on the couch, watching TV and trying to recuperate, I guess you could say. Literally fell asleep with pizza in my hand, like just passed out, sitting on the couch, wake up, I don't even know how long later, and the pizza's still in your hand. Like it's weird, like it doesn't fall. Like, why did it not fall? Was there like this like did my body know like you're gonna need to eat this pizza slice later on? So we're gonna put a death grip on it? It was weird that it just didn't fall to the ground. But yeah, like you're so tired after something like this, right? Like you're going to sleep when you don't expect to fall asleep. Yeah, climbing into bed, you're gonna pass out for sure. But there will be moments where you're just sitting and the world slows down and whatever's on TV just isn't keeping your attention. And even if it was the most exciting thing in the world, you're just not interested in it and you fall asleep. And I did that with Pete. First of all, the table in the Airbnb was filled with food, all kinds of pizza and bread, and you name it was on the table, because you're just hungry and you're like, everything sounds good. And you're like, I'm going to need to eat. So you order everything. And then just after a slice or two, like I was exhausted. I fell asleep with the pizza in my hand and woke up with the pizza in my hand. Then resumed to eat again.
Oh, it's hysterical. Like, you look at it back, it's hysterical. And funny at the time, it's not. It's like for crying out loud.
Shocking. Like,
It's
why is this pizza still in my hand?
how'd this pizza get here?
Where am I?
Yeah, where am I? Yeah, exactly, exactly. How long did it take you to finally feel that you are quote unquote human again?
That's a really good question. I didn't run for a very long time. Activity, walk more than anything else, but no strength training, no cycling, no like literally nothing for at least 3 weeks, if not a month, um, before I really decided to start getting into other things. And so, avoiding as much of a planned workout, go out and I would go and move around and get on trails and stuff like that. But nothing that was like a strict training plan where you would feel guilty if you missed a day, kind of thing. Just do what you felt like doing. There was cycling was involved in there because it's no impact. There was swimming involved because it's no impact. But running wise, probably 3 weeks, maybe a month before I got back out to running again. But I would get active because again, you want to move, get the blood flowing so
Mhm.
that you could flush the toxins out of your body. Which means, like, I can't stress this enough: drink all the water you can possibly drink so that you can go to the bathroom and get rid of all the bad stuff as quickly as you possibly can. Um, but yeah, I would say probably like 3 weeks before feeling good enough to go out and do stuff. Now, I had to go to work. You've mentioned, having jobs.
Mhm.
I had to go to work, and all of that stuff was on repeat, and handling stuff and having conversations and that stuff. So that, from a normal perspective, that was there. But as far as physical activity, it was probably 3 weeks before I would start training, quote unquote training.
And I like that you gave yourself the time. You gave yourself the
Yeah, you
time,
have to.
and yeah, you have to. And it's not only a physical thing; it's a mental thing as well
Mm-hmm.
too.
100%.
And in our conversation, you mentioned that it was a 50 miler. Was it Lake Sonoma that you were in? Can you share about
Yeah.
that one?
That man, that race was so hard too. So Lake Sonoma tagline is relentless, and it really is. No, I don't think it is anymore, but it used to be a Western States qualifier. I think only one of two 50-mile Western States qualifiers at the time. Um, it's 12,000 feet of elevation gain over 50 miles. It is full on exposed.
Mm.
And when I registered for the event, again, it was before COVID. So then COVID happens and everything's getting kicked around. And the race typically happens early in the year where it's cooler in Northern California. Well, California was shut down, and so they couldn't do the race. Obviously, the year of COVID, and then the following year was still shut down at the time of the race, which I want to say is like late March, early April, and they wouldn't allow the race to happen then, and so they kicked it to September. And the year I did it, it was like 110 degrees or so. It was just brutal, Sherry. It was so hot. Plus, again, 12,000 feet of elevation gain over 50 miles. Just an absolute brutal event to participate in. But I will say this, like it's again, the baseline for hard had already been established at Lane Mountain. And so I can get through this. But yeah, so the focus was getting myself to Lake Sonoma as healthy as I could possibly be. And I got to Lake Sonoma in a really good position to actually race. So you're talking what, May to September. So what is that? 4 months, 5 months. So yeah, I was ready to race when I got to Lake Sonoma after Cocodona.
So what I liked about this is it was a 4-month time period. It wasn't a few weeks after it or wasn't enough.
Yeah,
So when you're looking back at that, did you feel you had enough time from
more than enough,
Cocodona?
more than enough. Because here's the thing, right? You When you cross the finish line at Cocodona and you take a week or 2 or 3 weeks, 4 weeks off, your fitness doesn't go back to where it was before Cocodona. Like, you've established a new baseline of fitness. And so there's no reason to think that your fitness is less than it was months ago. Your fitness is much better now. And so now it's a matter of maintaining that fitness to get to Cocodona healthy, physically, but also mentally prepared to race, and really get into it at that point. So I think that 4 months was enough time, because I'm also, again, when I'm a low volume runner, like it's not like I'm stacking 100-mile weeks onto themselves. If I ran 15 miles in a week at the start, and then by the time we got closer to Lake Sonoma and I'm running 35 to 40, I'm golden. Like, I feel good about this. I don't have to. I'm not losing sleep over the fact that I didn't run 120 miles that week. You know what I mean?
Mhm. Nice, yeah, okay. And when we chatted, you said one of the best things you did was let life and no structure.
Yeah.
And I
Yep.
think that is so important is like, yes, you have to go to work or whatever, but in your training, it's just let it go for that period of time until you're ready to come back. And as you said, you're ready to race. So I have to ask is, would you run Cocodona again?
Um, that's a tricky question. And the answer is yes and no. And the reason why I say yes is if somebody was like, "Hey, here's a free entry," I would do it. But the answer is predominantly no. And the reason why I say no, and it's not because it wasn't a great experience, it's not because I didn't have a good time out there. The answer is no, is because there's so much other stuff that's out there.
Yes.
There are so many things out there, and I want to gain experiences in life that are multitudes of things as opposed to the same experience multiple times, if that makes sense, right?
Oh, for
And this is
sure.
coming from a person. This is coming from a person who raced Rocky Raccoon 5 times. I raced Rocky Raccoons 5 years in a row so that I could get my Western States ticket to enter the lottery. And it's so I'm not saying this coming from a person who's never done the same race twice. I've done multiple races multiple times, and I think a lot of that comes from being insecure in finishing.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, I say that because look, I knew I could finish Rocky Raccoon. Like, I've finished that event in 19 hours. I had a goal of breaking 19 hours, and I think the max time you're allotted is 30, maybe 32. And so you're looking at another 11 to 13 hours that if things really went sideways for me at that event, I knew I could finish. And I could collect my Western states. But if I was to go to another race, there would be question marks.
I
Could I finish this
gotcha.
race? Could I finish it on time to get my Western states entries? Like all of those things enter into it. And so that's a long answer to your question, which is no, I wouldn't go back to Cocodona because I want to stretch myself. I want to go see something else. I want to go live a different experience. Cocodona, running through the desert for half of the event, and then getting into Sedona for a quarter of the event is Red Rocks, and then you getting into Flagstaff and Pine Tree Country, is a quarter of the event. Oregon 200 appeals to me because it would be like the end of Cocodona for the whole thing in the Pacific Northwest. And that would be a different experience. And so for me, it's, I want to go experience something new, something different, something that will challenge me differently than the way Cocodona challenged me.
That's a fair answer, and I like that because, there's gonna be races that you love to run. For
Mhm.
whatever it is, it comes around again, you gotta run it. And then there's some of them you run, if you run, "Yeah, that's good. I'm good with that. Yep. Good with that." Now I'm gonna ask, because you've done Cocodona and you saw your training, knowing then what you know now, would you have done anything differently for your training?
Nope.
Good
Maybe
answer.
swim more.
Okay.
Maybe swim more. And the reason why I say swimming more is because it is non-impact, but it will help increase your VO2 max. Because if you think about swimming in and of itself, you're completing an activity with less oxygen than you normally would if you're riding a bike or running. And so it will help you with your VO2 max when you're swimming because you're not breathing a lot of the time while you're active. And so it helps with recovery. It helps with non-impact fitness. And so
Mhm.
maybe I would add more swimming, but in the grand scheme of things, I wouldn't change a thing. Look, I got through the event 110 hours with no injury.
And
How
that
much more how much more volume would you add and what is the return on that investment? So I would go from 110 hours to 108. Like no matter what I did, I'm not going to be down at Rachel's speed, right?
Mhm.
So how much are you really going to invest to improve on the margins of 110 hours to 109 hours to 108 hours? And then I would ask myself, would I be immensely more proud at 108 or 107 hours than I am versus 110? And the answer is no. Like there's minuscule separation between 107 and 110 hours to go from 35 miles of training to 50 miles, from 50 miles to 75 miles. Like that's just the margins gained for me are just not worth it there when I can go do other things in life and enjoy life away from the sport and avoid getting burned out on training.
That is such a good answer. I really like that. That is such a good answer. It's a good perspective to have as well too, and is training that much harder, that much longer, what's it gonna yield in the long in the long run? That is such a good answer, and, thank you so much for sharing your story here with Cocodona, and you know what? It's Cocodona, but you know what? It applies to any race that somebody wants to go in that is stretching the limit and stretching how far they wanna go. So, what's the next race for you?
I don't know when you're going to publish this, but we are going to be racing at the Salt Lake City foothills on May 30th. We're doing a half marathon out there, trail race. And then June 26th, I think, is the San Francisco Marathon. Those are the next two races that are coming up on the schedule.
Nice, very nice. So how could people get a hold of you, Jason?
Because I'm a marketing expert, everything is all the same at Run Try Mag. So you can go to YouTube, you can go to Instagram, you can go to our website. Everything is at Run Try Mag. And I welcome you to email me if you have questions. Jason at runtrymag.com. I will happily answer those questions for you because I just love talking to people. And I'm probably going to ask you more questions than you ask me when you email me.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on today and sharing your story. It was great. It was fantastic and it was also insightful as well too. And it's really good to get a perspective from somebody who's been out there longer than the top few of the pack. So, yeah, like for the everyday runner, Jason's for the everyday athlete, I'm for the everyday runner. We teamed well together. What do you think?
Thanks for sharing your platform with me.
Oh, you're welcome. So, everyone, stay tuned for what more I have to offer as well too. But in the meantime, you know what? It's a beautiful day. Get out there, get some trail, and we'll see you next time.